Now we look at 2022. I want to tell my Republican friends, get ready, pal. You're going in for a problem. But it was the largest turnout in American history. 81 million people showed up to vote. 81 million.
The next day.
Majority disapprove on is Joe Biden doing what Joe Biden promised to do, help the middle class. 54% say they disapprove. International policy, foreign affairs, also the president underwater. Only 3 in 10 Americans, only 30% say Biden's policies have improved the economy. 45% say they have worsened things, and 25% say no effect. So add this up. 70% of Americans say things are either the same or worse when it comes to the economy in Joe Biden's presidency. Remember, he said, I get it. I have all this experience. I am ready to lead. Well, 66% of Americans, 2/3, that means a fair amount of Democrats, have either reservations or doubts about President Biden's leadership. But this is what is critical about this poll. This is not just people think this. Look at our numbers. People feel this. That's why the president is down. This is personal. 70%, nearly 69% of Americans say they've been unable to find something they want to purchase. Supply chain issues. 57% say they've faced delays in receiving something they want to purchase. Again, back to the supply chain. 54% of you say you've either bought fewer groceries or changed what you buy at the store because of inflation at the grocery store. And it's a smaller number, but still 43% of Americans say they've cut back significantly on driving because gas costs are up. Among those who approve of the president, 16% say they approve strongly of Joe Biden's job performance. 34%, more than twice as many, say they disapprove strongly. If you're thinking about a midterm election year, you're thinking about intensity. Who wants to vote? Who's coming out? That's a warning sign for the Democrats.
Right. 33% of Democrats, only 1/3 of Democrats approve strongly. 75% of Republicans disapprove strongly. So you see the intensity gap there. When only 1/3 of your home team says, I'm strongly for you, right. You've got an intensity gap that has real world outcomes in getting people to actually vote in an election year.
And this was always the risk with nominating Joe Biden, was that he was seen as the best possible pick to beat Donald Trump. He wasn't seen as the most inspirational, transformational leader in the field. He was the safe bet. Because the number one goal for Democrats, and a lot of folks who were Democrats last year, was how do we get Trump out of office? And Biden was seen as the easiest way to do that. I have a vivid memory of just over a year ago talking to people outside the White House the Saturday that the race was called for Joe Biden. And what sticks out in my mind from that day was they were excited that Trump was gone. I'd ask about, aren't you excited about Joe Biden being president? And they would be polite, but there was nobody among Democratic partisans, the kind of folks who were at the White House celebrating, who were thrilled for Joe Biden. They were thrilled that Trump was gone. And that is now coming home to roost because with Trump out of the picture, at least most of the way, it's about Biden, and people aren't thrilled about what they have. They're happy about who left.
When you have 7 in 10 Americans say they've been unable to find something, when you have 54% of Americans saying they're either buying fewer groceries or changing the way they buy groceries, it's a problem.
They haven't really mastered how to feel the pain of Americans. You heard him, for instance, say there that this is just a bump in the road, what's going on with the economy. It doesn't feel like a bump in the road to most Americans when you go to the grocery store and you have to change your patterns. We have to change your driving patterns because of the price of gas, which many Americans hadn't really thought about for years and years because it was such a stable and good number. Now Americans have to rethink all of their habits.
Doug Sosnick, a very smart Democratic strategist, worked in the Clinton White House, wrote a memo that was released today. It's not about our new poll, but it's about other recent polls that are similar in the sense. And he talks about this. This is the best political environment for the Republicans since 2010.
It's personal to people. They are seeing these higher prices, and they are blaming whoever they can, including the president. His approval numbers are way down. Is there a fix for the Fed, or is this a long-term issue?
This is a very long-term issue.
72% of Americans in this poll say that the government is doing too little to respond to inflation. Only 22% say it's doing the right amount. 5% say too much. We also asked a whole series of economic issues and wanted to get a sense from people on how much concern they have about its impact on the economy. Look at this. 80% of Americans in this poll say that food costs are a major problem for the U.S. economy. 79% supply chain issues. 77% say that about housing costs. You see all the way down there. In fact, it's the pandemic. It's the coronavirus pandemic that is down at still 65%. 2/3 of Americans say it's a major problem. But in comparison to those rising costs, you can see that's what it means for Americans to be feeling the impact of that inflation. Yeah, he's underwater on the issue of the economy, which, as you know, is issue number one. But look at all of these issues. Only coronavirus is Joe Biden at a majority approval, 54% approve of the way he's handling coronavirus. But everything else, he's below a majority and underwater, and the economy is one of his lower issues where he has only 45% approval. We also asked whether or not his policies are impacting the economy. Take a look at this. 45% of Americans, nearly half of those we polled, say that Biden's policies have worsened economic conditions in this country. A quarter say had no effect. 30% say they made them better. Compare that to Obama in 2009, when unemployment was twice what it is now. Inflation obviously wasn't as high. And you see Americans have a much darker view of Biden policies on the economy right now than they did that of Obama at this point at the end of his first year in office.
Can I ask you about this Twitter spat between Elon Musk and Senator Elizabeth Warren? Because I am fascinated by what the right answer is here. So Elizabeth Warren tweeted, let's change the rigged tax code so the person of the year, Elon Musk, will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else. He then responded a few hours later, you remind me of when I was a kid and my friend's angry mom would just randomly yell at everyone for no reason. Mature. And then he went on to say, and if you opened your eyes for 2 seconds, you would realize I pay more taxes than any American in history this year.
Now let's talk about this new polling that David Chalian just brought us. 45% of respondents say that the president's policies have actually worsened their economic condition. But people are spending money. Stock market is high. I mean, what's the disconnect here? I mean, imagine if you're paying, $3.30 per gallon, that's what you see every day.
Well, 100%. It's kitchen table economics. If fuel's going up, if food is going up, that hurts in the wallet. And people tend to blame the president or give the president credit sometimes more than he deserves for what's going on in the economy.
So when the president says we're at the peak, you don't buy that?
I don't buy that. I think it's going to be up and down for the next year.
Okay.
For a year.
I do.
Wow.
Okay, Ronna Fruhart, thank you.
I'll see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
In our politics lead, a brand new exclusive CNN poll is revealing why America seems to be souring on President Biden's leadership and on the U.S. economy. Despite positive news on the employment front and on Wall Street, for weeks we've been seeing inflation driving up the costs for nearly everything. Food, gas, cars. Now Americans say this is a bigger problem for the economy, inflation, than COVID is.
Look at this list, Jake. You see food costs, supply chain issues, housing costs. It's all nearly 8 in 10 Americans in this poll saying that is a major problem for the economy. In fact, COVID-19, 2/3 of Americans see that as a major problem, but in comparison to the rising cost issue, it is way down there. So that's the real concern. And then, of course, we see a huge majority saying the government's doing too little about inflation. 72% say that the government response to inflation is simply too little. 22% say the right amount. Only 5% say the government's doing too much. I think this may be one of the most troubling numbers inside our poll for the president today. 45%, nearly half of the Americans in this poll, say that Biden's policies have worsened economic conditions. 30% say they've improved. 25% no effect at all. So 70% say they've worsened or no effect at all, Biden's policies. And then if you look at how Biden has handled the issues and his approval on each issue, the economy, he's way down. He's upside down. Look down there. 45% approve of his handling of the economy. 54% disapprove. That's the same when you say about helping the middle class. There's only one issue area where he has a majority approval, and that's COVID-19 with 54% approval.
Oh, that's fascinating. And it's a sobering year-end report card for the president. But we also have this thing called the CNN, that's our poll right there. We also have this thing called the CNN poll of polls, which includes the 5 most recent national polls, and we average those together. And that has them lower, 45% approval, 50% disapproval. At what point does the White House start freaking out? Caitlin, this poll it's just devastating for President Biden. Only 34% of those polled see Biden as a leader. 66% say they have some doubts. As we get closer to the midterms, what's the takeaway message for Democrats? Do they need to start distancing themselves from President Biden?
And I think when you talk to aides at the White House, when you talk to political advisors of this president, they say these aren't quick fixes. These aren't issues that can be changed quickly, or this isn't something that's going to fade from people's public view or public mind. It's something that is going to stay in the forefront of the news cycle for months to come.
There's still that big social safety net spending bill, Build Back Better. It's not any closer to getting passed in the Senate. Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, a Democrat, still not willing to say he supports it. I don't even know if that bill is going to be brought up for a vote, to be quite frank, anytime soon. And the less popular a president is, the less of his agenda he can get through Congress.
Jake, you brought up the leadership points. I just want to say, you said 66%. That's what our poll found of people who have reservations about his leadership. 36% of Democrats say they have some doubts or reservations. He also has this issue of his home team, Democrats, not strongly approving him. There's an intensity gap. There's a rallying around effort that needs to happen here. His legislation would help that, but it's totally stalled out at the moment. And so you have Democrats not nearly as enthusiastic at the moment as the president would need them to be heading into next year's election.
All right, David Chalian, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Caitlin Collins as well.